good. Yeah, good. Real good. The good stuff. It's so bad. Got this food line going. Very well.
Good evening. Welcome to the Rockingham County School Board meeting for November 8th, 2021. Welcome to all of you to the meeting. We're going to call the meeting to order. The first business on the agenda is to approve the agenda, and I am going to make a motion to approve the agenda, but also add an additional item to it for 4C. Would that be what it is, Ms. Bocock? And that would be to amend the agenda to include an action item for an outline and information from the superintendent regarding employee bonuses that he will outline for us and ask for action this evening. I know that the superintendent has shared conversation individually with each of you, and so he has asked that we add an item to tonight's agenda. So the chair moves that we approve the agenda with the addition of item 4C, bonuses. Do we have a second? Thank you, Mr. Falk. Any questions or discussion, board members, regarding the agenda? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay. Ms. Bocock, are you good? Okay, thank you. Okay, thank you. Next, please join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. We'll take a moment of silence. Thank you. We'll now move into public comments. We have 3 speakers who are signed up to speak this evening. The first speaker is Mark Flanders. Mr. Flanders? Welcome.
Thank you. I am Mark Flanders. I live in Bridgewater, and I have several students in the district. At the meeting on October 11th, Mr. Breeden asked a rhetorical question. He mentioned for many years he has had great conversations with constituents in his community, in the grocery store, over lunch, at church, etc. Then he comes to these meetings and the tone and rhetoric changes and becomes harsh and accusatory. He asked, quote, "What changes from the Dan that people talk to in those settings and the Dan that people see when I am behind this podium?" And I think he was also asking what is different today versus perhaps in the past in regards to the tone and rhetoric at these meetings when maybe it was less harsh. So these questions have been weighing pretty heavily on me since he asked that. I've been thinking about it actually a ton over the last month. And I want to take a stab at answering it. And of course, I don't speak for all parents. I can only speak for myself and my family. But I will say that I've based on my conversations with a lot of other parents, and probably based a little on the fact that 80% of Rockingham County parents voted for Governor-elect Youngkin, I'm fairly certain that there are many, many parents in this county that feel similar to how I feel. So to answer Mr. Breeden's questions, I think there are two main factors at play. First is everything going on in the world around us. Lockdowns, masks, loss of income for some families, kids home from school for extended periods of time, government mandates. On top of all that, we see what's going on in school boards around the country, and particularly nearby us in Loudoun County, and perhaps if you're paying attention, what's going on in Albemarle County. And I fully admit that those events have nothing to do with you all particularly or specifically. They're not under your control. And to the extent that our indignation as parents for what is happening in the greater world around us may get misdirected at you all, I'm sorry. Perhaps you can understand why we are so on edge and be forgiving. We are genuinely worried for our kids, for their futures, and we want to ensure that the kind of crap that is happening in Loudoun never makes its way to Rockingham County. So the second thing is, I would say, a perceived lack of transparency, and you spoke to that, Mr. Breeden, a little bit, that you were accused of a lack of transparency. And I would say that you all probably feel like you are transparent. You're not actively trying to hide things or, to your credit, keep parents out of meetings, shut down meetings and all that, and throw us out. So I give you some credit for that. But the level of transparency that we're looking for is a level above that. The transparency we're looking for is that we need to know that we are heard, that where each of you stand relative to the issues that we care about, and whether or not you have the courage to do anything about it, okay? That's the kind of transparency we're looking for. This is the standard by which we should measure all of our elected representatives so that we can be informed voters. So two issues, since I've been participating in these meetings, and you're probably somewhat sick of hearing from me, but two issues that have been repeatedly brought up, not just by me, but by others, for instance, have been masks and boys in the girls' bathroom, right? There's been a lot of discussion of those two issues, often very heated and passionate. So far that I can see in the meetings that I've been to and the ones that I've watched online, there's been no discussion from the board or response to those comments in any meaningful way. There's been no vote regarding those issues. And that's been seen as, the governor did the mask mandate, so we could kick that can down the road. We don't have to discuss it and vote on it. Well, we're following the law on the transgender policy. We don't have to discuss that and vote on it. That's perceived by us as a lack of transparency. We want to know where you all stand, and would you have the courage to act on these issues? So my challenge is this. One of you simply make a motion tonight. Give parents the ability to opt out of have their kids wearing masks. Somebody second the motion, and then discuss it and vote on it. This would make the board very transparent. We would know that we've been heard, where you all stand, and do you have the courage to act? Simple. And that would assuage, whether or not the outcome came out how we would like it, that would make us feel that you are transparent and that you are representing our interests. Perhaps next meeting, because I know it would be a lot to tackle in one meeting, someone could do the same thing and propose a vote on modifying the transgender policy so that boys are never allowed in the girls' bathroom regardless of how they identify. You could discuss it, vote on it, and we would know that we've been heard, where you all stand, and are you willing to act? So my call is, let's take our transparency to the next level, and hopefully that will help bring the rhetoric level down. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Flanders. Our next speaker is Nancy Sudarth. Did I get that right?
Hi.
Hi.
Thanks for letting me speak.
You're welcome.
I'm Nancy Sutter from Broadway, Virginia, and I went to the Harrisonburg City School meeting the other night. You guys need to check your libraries and make sure they don't have that graphic porn. If you can get the copy of the video of that meeting, you need to watch it. Okay, good, because it's happening in Loudoun County. One of my previous jobs was for a big Northern Virginia hospital where I was a certified clinical research coordinator. I helped a researcher in the Northern Virginia area in his medical office. Some of my job tasks involved writing and obtaining informed consent for research subjects. Excuse me, my mouth is dry. Guidelines for research subjects were developed after World War II and are based on the Nuremberg codes that resulted from the exposure of abhorrent and testing on humans in Nazi Germany. I wrote this letter to the Harrisonburg City School office, and it was talking about the mandates. So I'm taking a little bit from this, but I got a very curt reply because I based it on them demanding mandates for the people who work in Harrisonburg City. The COVID vaccines were released for emergency use, and by definition, they are experimental. They were not approved by the FDA recently. In fact, the vaccine Comirnaty was approved, and it's my understanding that's not what they're going to be giving in the schools. Vaccines, and this has been caught on camera, are made with aborted fetal cells and go against some religious beliefs of people. There are many side effects, and the CDC bears. And today, if you want to check it, there was 856,917 reported adverse events from these vaccines. Some may have been minor. You need to check that out. In 1986, Congress passed the 42 U.S. Code 300AA22, which exempts vaccine manufacturers from liability for injury. And that code says no vaccine manufacturer shall be liable in a civil action for damages arising from a vaccine-related injury or death associated with the administration of a vaccine after October 1st, 1988, if the injury or death resulted from side effects that were unavoidable even though the vaccine was properly prepared and was accompanied by proper directions and warnings. Everybody has to do their own research, but I've been following this quite closely. So I am a little distressed to find out that the march is on to vaccinate our kids. And it's happening in the schools. I don't know if you guys can do anything. Ben Carson, if you guys know anything about Ben Carson, he is a well-known pediatric neurosurgeon. He separated conjoined twins. He is saying, absolutely do not get the shot for your kids. So I'm concerned about that. The 5th District of United States Court Saturday gave a stay of mandates, thank goodness, which means this is all maybe coming down to court trials, in which case all of this that has been condoned may be subject to legal action. So I highly suggest you all think about vaccinating the kids, continuing to ask for mandates for the kids and for the workers. I thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Sutter. The next speaker is Julie Deal.
Hi, everybody. I'm going to take us in a little different direction. I think we might all be ready for that. All right, so my name is Julie Deal. I am a 2002 graduate of Turner Ashby High School, and I'm a mom to 4 children. 2 of them are old enough to be in RCPS. So I'm here humbly to give voice to a suggestion that's been raised in the community. Sometimes an idea makes so much good sense that no one person suggests it. The suggestion has been brought forth in multiple local arenas to rename Turner Ashby High School after our beloved late coach and local legend, Carlisle Whitelow. Anyone who grew up in this community knew Coach. For anyone who didn't, here are some recent accolades from an article. Carlisle was a pioneer in athletics, not only at Bridgewater College, but in the Commonwealth of Virginia. He lettered 2 years in football, basketball, and track at Bridgewater and was the first Black athlete to participate in intercollegiate athletics at the college. He was also the first Black athlete in the state to play at a school that was not a predominantly Black college. Following his graduation in 1959, Carlisle taught high school until returning to teach and coach at Bridgewater in 1969. He taught in the physical education department and coached football, basketball, and tennis for the Bridgewater College Eagles. Carlisle also worked with the education department and supervised student teachers. In 1975, Carlisle was named the College Faculty's Member of the Year. Coach Whitelow retired in 1997 and in 2001 was inducted into the Bridgewater College Athletic Hall of Fame. However, his service to the Bridgewater community continued. He was named Citizen of the Year by the local Royerton Club, and in 2018, the town of Bridgewater dedicated Whitelow Park in his honor. Coach Whitelow was a man who spent his life in service to others, and as an example of what each of us can strive to be. Most importantly, I think, to me as a mom with little kids, without any prompting or fanfare, he stood each morning in front of Dairy Queen and waved to all the community as they made their way through the morning rush hour we have in Bridgewater on Main Street. It didn't matter who you were, it didn't matter who you voted for, it didn't matter who your daddy was, it didn't matter. Carlisle thought you were worthy of a wave. And he really lived out the motto of putting community above self. We could rename Turner Ashby High School after its geographic location, like West Rockingham, and there's nothing wrong with that. But perhaps we have an opportunity here. We have an opportunity to honor a lifetime of service to our area in Coach Whitelow. And deep down, I think what is the true spirit of this community and what we would hope that our kids can strive for, which is a new legacy, and that would be Whitelow High School. Thank you, Coach.
Thank you, Ms. Deal. We appreciate your comments. We don't have any other members of the public who have signed up for comments, so we're going to move on to our next item on the board or on the agenda. That is highlights by board members. Dr. McQuilkin.
Thank you, Ms. Reed. My highlight for this evening is the fact that I attended a panel discussion and a breakfast called Take Your Legislator to School. And represented there were people, were the superintendents from Rockingham, Shenandoah, Page, and Warren counties. And the topics that the four superintendents brought to the legislators that were present and their aides, the top of the list was mental health services. All the divisions supported increased mental health services for the students. The legislators were hearing from the superintendents so that they could, when they go to the legislative meeting starting in January, they then would have an idea of what was most important. The second were crumbling school facilities. Another one was tone in public discourse. A third one was alternative education funding and a shortage of qualified teachers and staff. It was a very informative meeting, and I was glad to be able to be present. Thank you, Ms. Reed.
Thank you, Dr. McQuilkin. Ms. Lohr.
Thank you, Dr. McQuilkin. I was also able to attend that breakfast and found it very helpful. After presentations, we were able to break out and speak with the legislatures over breakfast, and I was able to sit down and talk with our Delegate Tony Wilt. Tony and I are old friends, so it was quite enjoyable. But one thing that I wanted to advocate for, and I know that vaccines are quite a hot topic, and it's students' vaccines, mandated student vaccines, are the legislature's jurisdiction. We as a school board do not get to mandate what vaccines students will take. It is the state legislature. So I talked to Tony about that and advocated on behalf of our students. I don't think it's appropriate for students to have to be mandated to get the COVID vaccine at this point in time. But I encourage each and every one of you to reach out to your delegates and voice your views on that, because they're the ones that are going to have to make the decision on it, and they need to hear from you. And I told Tony, as people contact me, I'm going to send them to him. So he is ready and willing to hear your thoughts on that topic. He also was very interested in hearing about SOLs and how we can help our kids through the SOL process this year. So if you have ideas on that, by all means, either reach out to Dr. Scheichel's office or to Tony Wilt himself. But it was a wonderful breakfast, and we really got some time to spend with the legislature, so that was very nice. Also, Saturday, I believe it was, the Broadway marching band competed at the state championships. Bless their hearts, they were up practicing at 4:30 in the morning on Saturday morning when it was like 24 degrees. And they went and represented our county very well and took home a 4th place win, state championship. So I'm very, very proud of what was it again, Dr. Scheichel? The Broadway marching fight. They have a fancy name, but it's the Broadway High School Marching Band. So we're very proud of them. Also, what has it been, 2 weeks already? Virginia FFA competed at National FFA, the National FFA Convention, and we had several teams place bronze and silver, but if I can get it to come up, here we go. But we had a 3rd place win in our forestry contest, and that team consisted of Grace Fravel, Blake Payne, Alan Showalter, and Jessica Showalter, with Blake being 6th place individual in the nation in our FFA forestry contest, and Jessica Showalter being 4th place individual. So we are so very proud of those students as well, and I just wanted to congratulate them. And I guess that's all I have for today. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Lohr. Mr. Falk? Thank you, Mr. Falk. Mr. Breeden?
Thank you, Chair Reed. First of all, I'd like to begin by wishing my colleague a day early happy birthday. Tomorrow you will be able to sing along with When I'm 64 with some gusto. So congratulations there. Sir, I'm sorry we did not have an opportunity to hook up since you and I talked. I'll be happy to talk with you about why that was after the meeting. I won't bore everyone else with the details. We constantly are in communication with Dr. Scheichel, looking at things ourselves, particularly with regards to masks, and I think you may have some comments tonight about that. I think that if it came to a vote, as you suggested, that ought to be something that would be advertised in order to give folks an opportunity to come out and speak. We typically like to announce really big issues that are that real to the community, some notice so that they can come out to do that. I personally will continue to support wearing a mask as long as I'm convinced that science dictates that that's the best way to go. I know there are differences of opinion, but I say as long as I'm convinced that that's the case. And you know, as far as the boys in the girls' bathroom, I said to someone the other day, if anyone thinks that I would vote for anything that would intentionally and knowingly put my 6-year-old granddaughter in harm's way, they don't know me very well. So, be that as it may, I appreciate all of the comments, those that agree, those who don't agree. And again, I always welcome these meetings are constricted. We're having some discussions one-on-one about how we can loosen that up to have more dialogue during the meetings, maybe changing some agenda items around so that we don't have so much to get to in one night. But thank you all, even those who don't agree with where I am. Thank you for where you are.
Thank you, Mr. Breeden. Dr. Scheichel.
In terms of highlights, I would say, again, the legislator breakfast was a highlight just because of the conversations we had with Delegate Wilt and some of the approaches we took 2 years ago to work with him and to get a bill that provides flexibility potentially in our hiring process. And he got that passed, again, in a democratically controlled House and Senate, even with support of the governor's office reaching across the aisle on good ideas. And so that was a highlight for me because we did a lot of work back then, and he will continue to do that. The same was true for Senator Obenshain, who had a representative there. And as for the marching band, so the marching bands are typically called, the Marching Eagles, the Marching Trailblazers, the Marching Knights, and at Broadway, it's the Fighting Gobbler Regiment. So those bands are amazing. We got to see them, a while back at JMU, and so, but certainly the legislative breakfast was a key piece. And then the other highlight, I don't want to take away from Becky Hill-Shiflett's presentation, but having the chance to observe our Strong Starts program at Cub Run about a week ago was a highlight, just to see where we can get with students who come to school at the youngest age and having trouble self-regulating, and the amazing work that the staff there has done. This was a project that we hoped would give kids a chance to be integrated into the regular classrooms, in short time periods, and then more and more to make sure we don't, have students who, because of their early troubles and what they bring to school, to not function in a regular classroom, and then to have to move them out. And so this is an opportunity to help them in so many amazing ways. And I know Becky will talk about our tiered systems of support today, but seeing Angelship at Cub Run was just a highlight, not just over these last 2 months, but certainly over the last few years, because it's a program we really put high hopes in, and to see it work out like that is so encouraging for the future too. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Scheichel. I have quite a few things I'm going to try and do. The chair usually doesn't speak a lot, but I'm going to take that time because I only have 2 more meetings left after this. First of all, I think we have 4 students from JMU here, right? Ryan, Tom, Mark, and Daniel. I think they're back there in the corner. They're in the Organizational Leadership Management 390, Dr. Hamilton's class. So we welcome you to the Rockingham County School Board. Thanks for being here. I have a few minutes after the meeting to answer whatever questions you have, and I'll also give you my contact information. But thanks for joining us this evening. I think we have high school students here. We have high school students that are here to fulfill their class requirements. Is that correct? So where are you all from? Okay, all of you from Turner Ashby? Okay, so welcome to all of you. Thanks for being here this evening. The next thing is, I know that Dr. Scheichel and Ms. Lohr and Dr. McQuilkin mentioned the legislative breakfast, and it being 2 days after the election was an excellent opportunity for us to engage with those legislators and talk a little bit more about our concerns and their concerns and where we go next. And there was an awful lot of common ground in that room and an awful lot of good dialogue. It's amazing the kind of fellowship that you can have over a good breakfast in a wonderful CTE building in Shenandoah County. So we talked a lot about moving beyond the election cycle into constructive dialogue. And to that end, probably in August, Mr. Breeden brought up the conversation about looking at how we can begin to have more community dialogue and engagement. And for the past probably, I would say 10, 12, 14 weeks, Dr. Scheichel and I have been working on pursuing that. We've built some background. We talked to some people in the community who were skilled facilitators to help us begin a dialogue. We met this morning with some community members who are going to help us build a framework for a process. And so it's going to be evolving. It's going to be complex. It's not going to happen probably as quick as everybody wants it to, but the framework will be in place. And I expect that we will meet with that group again within the next 2 to 3 weeks, and that by the time we have our December meeting, Dr. Scheichel will come back and talk a little bit about the framework that has come up from that group. This group represents this entire community. It has different political, different thoughts about it, but the one thing that we agreed on was that the heart of our community is the students in Rockingham County. And so we want to start to build a framework that we can use whenever we have difficult conversations we have to have. We need to talk about difficult issues. So we're going to use that framework and hope to build on it as things go forward. So stay tuned. There'll be more information probably around the December meeting regarding that. Let me just check my notes, make sure I don't have anything else. Nope, I think all of our students are doing a great job. I think we're in that swing to get us to Thanksgiving now. Numbers are down. I'm pretty sure that Dr. Scheichel is going to mention that in our schools. Our students are thriving, and they're really happy to be back in the buildings. I was with a couple of high schoolers in the last week or two, and the excitement they feel, even though it's still difficult to be in the buildings, is very evident. So I'm extremely proud of our teachers and our staff and our community for supporting those students and getting them back in there and getting things together, even as we face teacher shortages and bus route issues and all of the other things that have come from the last 18 months of the pandemic. So I'll pass my thoughts along to them also in the next couple of weeks, but I wanted to say that again, how much we appreciate that work. So, thank you, Dr. Scheichel. Okay, we're going to move into the next items, which is action items. The first is board members, you have the minutes from the last meeting. I need a motion to approve those minutes.
I move we approve the minutes as presented.
Thank you, Ms. Lord. Do we have a second? Thank you, Mr. Falk. Any questions or discussion regarding the minutes? Seeing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Next action item is bills and mileage for October 2021.
You have the bills and mileage for October 2021 in your materials, and I recommend approval of the bills and the mileage.
Thank you, Dr. Scheichel. Board members, you've heard the superintendent's recommendation regarding the bills and mileage for October 2021. Do we have a motion for approval?
I move that we approve the bills as recommended by the superintendent.
Thank you, Dr. McQuilkin. Do we have a second? Thank you, Mr. Falk. Any questions or discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay. The next item is the one that we added for C. Dr. Scheichel?
Over the last few months, we had a number of conversations about compensation for our employees during the pandemic. It's currently a really difficult environment for everyone to work in. We have teachers, because of and this is nothing unique to Rockingham County Schools. We have staffing shortages across the country, and they affect education as well. We have a pretty significant substitute shortage, which means that in many cases, teachers give up their planning time to cover other classes. We have central office staff giving up 1 day per week to substitute in schools. And that means, of course, that for those staff members, that work increases what has to get done the other days by 20% if it's a fifth of the week. And because of quarantines and all the other requirements, teachers have to prepare much more so than in the past for multiple ways for students to get the information that they need. They may not be physically in the building, and so that adds workload as well. And we have, and we're probably in a little bit of a better position than some other districts because we did bring students back 4 days a week at the end of last year in April. But certainly, again, the recovery from a pandemic like this is significant. The economy was shut down. It affected every family differently. If you looked at the recent research and how it affected different families, certainly when we normally already see such a variety of needs in our buildings, that's just multiplied. And so over the last few months, we've had conversations about what we could do as an extra reward for our employees who are working, extra hard during this pandemic and again, face additional obstacles. And so in our conversations, we arrived at the idea of a bonus in December to our staff members. And so the conversations that I've had with individual board members and with staff lead to the recommendation for an $800 full-time bonus and a $400 bonus for part-time employees to be paid on December 20th. And so that's different from the regular December pay. And there are criteria for both, for the full-time and for the part-time bonus. It goes to those who are employed on December 1st, 2021. And for the full-time bonus, staff would have to be eligible for full-time benefits or be working as a full-time, long-term substitute in a teacher vacancy. So, but we simply do not have a teacher. We couldn't find a teacher for a particular subject area, and so there's a long-term sub that's basically working a regular teacher schedule, and so they would also qualify for the full-time bonus. For part-time, same thing, employed on December 1st, must have a set schedule throughout the year, must work a minimum of 10 hours per week, includes cafeteria monitors, hourly custodians, hourly teacher assistants, hourly alternative education teachers, and others. And that's just to make it clear who it does not include. So neither the full-time nor part-time bonus is available to school board members and the superintendent. So I do want to make that clear before we get that question. And again, this took quite a bit of work to think through what funds we have available from additional funds that we've received. And this is, a gesture toward our employees. And I do recommend approval of the $800 full-time and $400 part-time bonus as previously discussed in our one-on-one meetings.
Thank you, Dr. Scheichel. Board members, you've heard the superintendent's recommendation regarding the December employee bonus for $800 for full-time employees and $400 for part-time employees per the parameters presented by the superintendent. Do we have a motion for approval?
I move that we accept the superintendent's recommendation.
Thank you, Mr. Breeden. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Dr. McQuilkin. Any questions or discussion, board members?
I would just say that this has been under discussion for some time and is not unprecedented. We have paid bonuses in the past as they were warranted and funds were available. So I'm glad that we're going to be able to help out the people that are working so hard during this difficult time.
Thank you, Mr. Breeden. Any other questions or discussion, board members? Okay. Seeing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Thank you, Dr. Scheichel. We're going to move into information items. Ms. Hill-Shiflett, welcome.
Thank you. Chair Reed, members of the board, Dr. Scheichel, it is always my pleasure to be able to come before you and speak to you about our tiered systems of support model. for our social, emotional, mental, and behavioral health. And we would not be at the place that we are so far ahead of, I think, a lot of many other school divisions if it would not be for the support that you have shown, the tiered systems of support innovation, recommendations for the services and supports that we need in Rockingham County Schools. So I'm going to take just a few minutes this evening to just give you a bit of an update on where we are with that. This is pretty much a traditional view of a tiered systems of support model, the typical triangle that shows the universal, the targeted, and the intensive services that we put into place for students. This is pretty widely known, but I want to share with you Rockingham County's tiered systems of support model, which looks very different. This was a concept that was sort of thought about, and through the process of the tiered systems of support innovation team, we were able to create this model in Rockingham County Schools, again, with the support that you provided us. The idea was to build a systematic collaboration between our division leaders, between school counselors, behavior specialists, board-certified behavior analysts, early intervention counselors, behavior support staff, across our division to provide a cross-disciplinary student support model that meets the current and future needs of our students. The positions and job descriptions of everything below those pink boxes were actually created through the work of the Tiered Systems of Support Innovation team. This additional staff that was created has created positive and responsive school cultures across the division. Obviously, we are continuing to implement this model with consistency and fidelity across our division. That team worked on a needs assessment, and I wanted to show you a little bit about what we've done with this need assessments. One of the things that we recognized were that the supports that we found most helpful were the things that we just needed more of. Ongoing intentional professional development, a need for being trauma-informed and looking at the cognitive science behind behavior, and the addition of licensed, trained, and hands-on personnel, which we have done through your support. So this evening, I'm going to focus a little bit on that ongoing professional development and the work that our staff has done in the increase of personnel. So one of the first things that I want to talk with you about is conscious discipline. Conscious discipline is an evidence-based and research-backed social-emotional learning foundation of safety, connection, and problem solving. We are implementing conscious discipline in our elementary schools. This is a transformational process regarding the mindset of adults, regarding behavior and how to respond to it. It focuses on self-regulation, managing thoughts, feelings, and actions, and it's the cornerstone of having a successful life. The conscious discipline model is based on mindfulness research. It is a management and discipline system that addresses the conscious awareness and emotional intelligence of the adult in managing student behavior. And it creates a long-term lasting success by guiding us to become conscious, present, and attuned to the responsive needs of our children. One of the things that conscious discipline focuses the most on is the brain state model. All of our brains function in certain states, and we know that there's a survival state, an emotional state, and an executive state. This becomes the framework for our internal brain-body states that are most likely to produce certain behaviors in children, and understanding those are critical to supporting the student. It's not making us neuroscientists, it's just providing a simplified brain model as a means for increasing our self-awareness so we can respond consciously to the needs of students. By doing so, we can help children who are physically aggressive, who are in this survival state, they are fight, flight, or freeze, or verbally aggressive in the emotional state, for them to become more integrated so they can learn and use problem-solving skills in the executive state. So the work we do in conscious discipline is noticing where the student's behavior is coming from and helping them move to self-regulation into the executive state where they can think and reason and use strategies. This is just a snapshot of a professional development activity that we did with conscious discipline with Kay Zastro, a national trainer and coach. She came for a full day in August and worked with our behavior support assistants and our behavior specialists and our pre-K teachers. We had a wonderful day. They were all presented with the Feelings Buddy curriculum, which is an easy-to-implement curriculum that illustrates how to manage emotions and behaviors at any age. And it's comprehensive and innovative tool for teaching self-regulation. And this is what we're finding many children need, are self-regulation skills. Kay Zastro continues to work with our behavior support staff once a month in a virtual coaching session, and we're very thrilled that we can have an opportunity to continue that coaching and training with her. Next year, we're hopeful that we can get the pre-K teachers involved in that type of training and coaching as well. The next thing I want to talk with you about is zones of regulation. This is also another strategy in our toolbox for helping students with self-regulation. And we had this training just recently on our Division In-Service Day, on October 29th, actually, and it was really kind of neat because as she came on virtually, 41 of our individuals in Rockingham County participated, elementary counselors and behavior support staff. And as she was noting who was there, England, Netherlands, Argentina, Switzerland, Canada, Spain, Venezuela, Mexico, Cuba, Thailand, she gave a shout out to Rockingham County Schools. So it was really exciting that she was able to do that due to the number of students, number of staff that we had participating. But zones of regulation is another opportunity for students to identify their feelings, helping them regulate what those feelings are. As you can see the list here, working with problem solving, understanding how behaviors influence others, which is pretty critical for students to understand. And it ultimately moves towards that independent regulation. Often we focus too much on the adults managing students, and we don't teach them internal regulation, and zones of regulation focuses on that internal regulation. So this is just a brief snapshot of the color zones and how we teach students what they may be feeling in each of the colors. And as they begin to identify and understand what the colors represent, they can identify how they're feeling. And once they've done that, they can also identify what strategies they can use for that self-regulation in each of those areas. Zones of regulation is a framework and a curriculum that teaches students scaffold skills toward developing a metacognitive pathway to build the awareness of their feelings or internal state and utilize a variety of tools and strategies for regulation, pro-social skills, self-care, and overall wellness. The next thing I want to share with you is our sources of strength training. This could not have happened without the support of the Rockingham-Harrisonburg Community Services Board, who have been very gracious in assisting us in funding with their prevention funds. This has started at Broadway High School, the pre-COVID, and kind of got cut off in March of 20, and this past October, we were actually able to go into year 2 of our sources of strength, fully funded by the Harrisonburg-Rockingham Community Services Board. So Sources of Strength is a youth suicide prevention project that's designed to harness the power of peer social networks to change unhealthy norms and culture, ultimately preventing suicide, bullying, and substance abuse. The mission of Sources of Strength is to prevent suicide by increasing help-seeking behaviors, promoting connections with peers, and caring adults. Sources of Strength moves beyond a singular focus on risk factors by utilizing an upstream approach. Many times we're always intervening after a situation has occurred. Sources of Strength is upstream. It's giving skills and giving sources of strength to students prior to an incident. The upstream model strengthens multiple sources of support, or those protective factors, around young individuals so that when times come hard, they have sources of strength. So as I mentioned, we were our year 2 into Broadway High School on October 14th and 15. 78 students from Broadway High School participated and 15 adult advisors. The adult advisors provide that connected, caring, and positive approach, helping to mentor the peer tutors, the peer leaders in spreading the message, as you can see, of hope, help, and strength instead of sad, shock, and trauma. These are just a picture of our peer tutors prior to COVID, our 2019-20 peer leaders. And again, the t-shirts that they have were funded by the Rockingham Community Services Board. The peer leaders work together to design messaging campaigns that build resilience, increase connection, change unhealthy norms, and focus on help-seeking behaviors instead of negative behaviors. Some of the campaigns that they did prior to this year are there highlighted. They did some activities where you can see that they had a bonfire. The idea was to bring all kinds of students that are represented through all kinds of social groups together. There was an activity for the Grateful Gobblers, and they also went through all the English classes and talked to the students about the sources of strength and how they can be well connected instead of, again, that being sad and shock and trauma. And the last one I want to share with you is skills streaming. So skills streaming is another tool in our toolbox. It's a 4-part training approach of modeling, role-playing, performance feedback, and generalization. The idea is to teach essential pro-social skills to children and adolescents. It comes with instructions for teaching a wide variety of pro-social skills. This is more of a quick at-a-glance resource for our behavior support staff. And at the elementary level, there are 60 skills that they can tap into, and at the adolescent level, there are 50 skills. So this is more of a resource for that in the moment, looking up a topic and having a strategy to work on it. So I wanted to share with you, that was one of the things that our team had decided was very important, and it was professional development. And that's where we are in our intentional professional development. The next thing I want to share with you really quickly, I want to go back to this triangle model, because this is the Rockingham County data for where we are right now at the elementary level. And you can see that our raw data puts us statistically right in where we should be regarding the number of students being served. So 238 children have been supported by a behavior assistant at the elementary level. The next tier up are students that, of those 238, were referred for support from a behavior specialist, which is you're getting into your 15%. And then the top of our triangle is our Strong Starts program. And right now we have 7 students in the Strong Starts program between Plains Elementary and Cub Run Elementary. This is taken from our raw data. All of our behavior assistants complete a Google form every day. We have the same Google form for all behavior assistants, behavior specialists, so that we can be collecting really good information about grade level, type of behavior, type of intervention, and it helps us see where we need to put our supports and what our staff is actually doing. It's exciting for me to share this because you actually can see the work that the people are doing that you helped put into place. At the middle school level, the elementary supports. So this is just how we can collect our data, and when we do that, we can actually represent it in these charts. This shows the supports that have been given to the types of like scheduled break, recess, doing classroom observations. The Feelings Buddies curriculum is a curriculum that is the conscious discipline. Helping in crisis, they were just requested to come to a classroom. Check-in, check-out is that big red piece because that's a lot of what students need. They need that one adult to check in with them in the morning, check in during the day, check in at the end of the day to see how they're doing. And our behavior specialists, the same thing. You can see that they're collaborating at level 1. The tier 2 are their referrals directly to them, and red would be their support for Strong Start students. So at the middle school, again, we added behavior support assistants at the middle school this year, and they, at this point, just from the 9 weeks data, have supported 218 students. Types of support are very similar. Again, that check-in, check-out, you'll see is one that's widely used, giving students, again, we know that connection with an adult is very powerful, providing that check-in, working in classrooms and monitoring behavior. This is our high school data. We have 2 types of data here. We have the students that are placed in BASE. BASE is our Behavior Assistance and Support for Education program, where students can be assigned up to 3 days instead of being suspended out of school. So we're keeping them in school, they're continuing to do their schoolwork, but they're also doing something restorative, where they're learning about their behavior. And you can see that through the chart, these are the kinds of things that the behavior assistants at the high school level are doing with students when they're in base. One page is the replay form, is a restorative conversation. What happened? Why do you think it happened? How did it impact others? What can you do next time? So we do a lot of restorative conversations. The check-in, check-out, we also have vaping and tobacco modules. If students are there for tobacco, they have modules that they can go through regarding the health benefits of vaping and tobacco and why it's not a good choice. And working on social skills as well through skills streaming. Students supported by the behavior assistant outside of those placed for discipline was 81. And those are students that come by that need support or need a place to eat lunch, need someone to talk to. So again, you can see our staff is busy. So I wanted to give you an idea of how the staff are impacting and the number of students. I want to go back to supporting mental health, which we know that we obviously in Rockingham were ahead of the game about 5 years ago when we started talking about this and building this model. But we still need to continue to work on that. And if we go back to that goal of additional licensed personnel, we know that we do continue to need social workers and psychologists. Those were on our original needs assessment that we still have not added. And obviously school counselors that can really approach and manage, support students in the mental health aspect. So I want to just kind of wrap up here with just a highlight on our bullying prevention. Bullying prevention in Rockingham County is not just a week or a month or a day. We do celebrate Unity Day. We do celebrate the month of October. But we really do strive, and I believe all of our schools do, to create cultures that are accepting, that show kindness and respect and offer acceptance to all students that come through our doors. But these are just a few highlights of some schools that had shared with me some of the things that they did. There was a Spirit Week at Elkton Middle School, and they talked about spreading love and peace. Each day there was something that they were to do. Elk stick together for anti-bullying, unite against bullying. Don't try to hide your care for others. That was Camo Day. I thought that was kind of cute. And we're on the same team. Wear your team shirt because we're all on the same team. The banner there to the right was a welcome banner. That was created by students at Pleasant Valley Elementary, and they presented it to New Bridge's Immigrant Resource Center to display in their office. They had spent a lot of time in the last several weeks talking about being kind and welcoming and respectful of people in the school and in the community. And the students made that mural during their art classes and made one to hang in the school as well. So a lot of positive things going on for bullying prevention. And I just want to close showing, it'll make your day to see this little video that was created by some students at John C. Myers for their bullying prevention message that they sent to their peers. So lot from our students. They can teach us a lot. And just a final thought there, you've seen this before. We really are convinced that when we help our students find healthy ways of dealing with their feelings, ways that won't hurt them or anyone else, we're helping to make the world a safer, better place. So thank you again. We can't thank you enough for the support that you continue to give the whole child, for the social, emotional, behavioral, and mental health of our students. Thank you. Any questions?
Thank you. Board members, questions for Ms. Hill-Shiflett? Any questions?
Just thank you. Thank you so much for all the work you've done.
Yeah.
I would just like to add that about 3 years ago, a young man came to live with my wife and I that had come from a very traumatic background. And his student record for discipline through elementary school looked worse than most that we see of seniors in bad cases. And because they're in school as much as they are, we would not be where we are today with him if it were not for the support in the school. This young man was a truancy case. He was academically in trouble. He was behind. Last year, except for one grade, he would have made the AB honor roll and missed perfect attendance by 2 days. And a lot of that is owed to the support that he gets at school. And for that, God bless him.
Thank you, Mr. Breeden. Ms. Hill-Shiflett, thank you for the work. Dr. Scheichel, that tiers of support slide that Becky showed, can we get that up on our webpage? Is that up somewhere on our web pages? Because I think that's important for, if we can find a way to frame it in the Rockingham County web pages, I think that'd be good, because honestly, that, if you had looked at that matrix 4 or 5 years ago, it didn't look anything like that. We started way from the beginning, and the amount of progress that we've made in the last 5 years has been tremendous to support our students, and we continue to kind of chip away at it. We spent a lot of time where we couldn't do anything associated with that, and then we were able to take off with it, and also got some generous support from the Board of Supervisors to provide some additional funding that we needed for that, and have been able to save to reallocate funds. So I think it's important for us to show that particular one that we have right now of what that looks like. So thank you.
No, I agree with you. And it is a story of teamwork. There's no one like Becky Hill-Shiflett to lead a project like that. But again, when we started with this, the first step was to make sure we did involve psychologists, social workers, nurses, administrators, teachers. We had our 2-day retreat in Winchester and came up with an initial framework for this, and that was followed each year by data analysis, by improvements to it. And so without Becky, but also without so many of these other staff members, we wouldn't be where we are. And you saw the Strong Starts program in there, and that's what I got to observe last week. And I will also say that just last week, I asked Becky about it because I received an email, and it's just, sometimes when we get emails from DOE that say only certain superintendents, I worry a little bit, okay, what am I gonna read next, right? What did we do that Richmond's complaining about? But that's not what that was. It was an invitation, and Becky received a phone call saying, hey, we want you guys to apply for a competitive grant. And so Becky and Amy Painter and others have been working on a grant application to, again, help with this. And it's really a key piece. And yeah, to look at that structure, it's not entirely different from what we first put together, except we, over the years, adjusted it a little bit, but there were a lot of empty boxes there. So, and now they're all colored in because over the course of these years, the board and, like you said, our funding body, provided help as well. So it's definitely one of our points of pride in how we've been able to help students. And yeah, so much credit goes to Becky and her team for sure, and to the board for supporting it, because I know we also sat in Florida at the Model Schools Conference. And this is, the conversations that were then had I remember Mr. Breeden calling from the airport to a counterpart on the Board of Supervisors saying, here is what we need to do, and we're going to have these conversations. And so here we are. It's really neat. So we'll definitely celebrate that on the website as well and put that up. My presentation tonight is going to be pretty brief. I appreciate you remaining for this part of the conversation. I will say, and I think the other public comment speaker had left. There were a couple of comments I wanted to make about that as it relates to the adverse reports after vaccination. The VA ERS, so the Vaccine Adverse Event Reporting System, isn't a system that lists all the bad things that happened because of a vaccine. Anyone can make a submission, and it is simply a listing of things that happened after a vaccine. That doesn't necessarily mean the two are related. And so the way that the system is used is that it gives the researchers a chance to look at the data and to determine whether there's a connection. So for example, with blood clots, we saw that, blood clots get reported, then there's an investigation. They, stopped vaccine delivery for a while, and then basically what it looked like is that between the control groups, the difference wasn't statistically significant. And so that's what VA ERS is there for. And so that's important to remember, because something's reported as something happening after the vaccine doesn't mean it's because of the vaccine. But it's important that people report that. And so with this vaccine, simply everyone's on the ball reporting pretty much everything they can, but that's not necessarily caused by it. But in terms of the community conversations, Ms. Reed has already mentioned that, and we did really make an effort to have these conversations, not just at board meetings, but to start engaging the community in difficult conversations. And we will have people at the table that mediate in war zones, right? So if they can bring the Israelis and the Palestinians to the table, I'm sure they can bring people in Rockingham County to the table that represent the entire community. So again, those are efforts that are ongoing, and I hope members of the public, as we reach out, to really have a representation where we're not just, again, community leaders, not that there's anything wrong with community leaders meeting, but it needs to be a representative of the entire population when we discuss these topics. And so again, that's ongoing. But when it comes to the vaccine, I just want to remind everyone, back in August, we talked about this, right? Because with the public health order, first there was some discussion whether Senate Bill 1303 already mandates the masks, and because of that conversation, then the health commissioner followed that up with a public health order that's still in effect, but that mandates masks. And so back in August, we talked about what it might take to make masks optional. At that time, on August 9th, we were still in orange in terms of the color chart, less than 100 cases per 100,000 over 7 days. But the numbers were increasing. And so that was the Delta variant. And we said, we need to look at how that affects kids. And we also have to be very careful when it comes to, giving every family the option to get their child vaccinated. As Ms. Lohr said earlier, vaccine mandates don't come from the school board. But it was important for us to say, if families are reluctant to send the kids to school without a mask, and then we need to wait for that vaccine to be available. Now, that's where we are now. And so, again, the conversation is going to be different, right? Because there are a lot of, again, we also looked into reduced community spread. So as it's going up, you have to be a little bit more careful. We know the Southern Hemisphere skipped the flu season again, mostly, again, because of the restrictions being in place. We won't know how that plays out here because, again, now, as we go into the new year, masks may become optional in many places. And so we'll see how that works for the flu season. But some of the steps that we've taken really help with that as well. And so we wanted to make sure we're in a good position when it comes to public health. Joseph Allen from the Harvard School of Public Health, who also serves on an international commission for COVID, organized by the Lancet journal. He has been one of the people that we've really followed closely because of his balanced view on many of these topics. And because of his research, and Lindsay Marr from Virginia Tech, who really changed how we understand airborne disease, we early on said we need to improve air quality in the building. Right now, we know that it's much safer outside without a mask than it is in a crowded indoor space. And the reason for it is simply airflow. In order to get sick, it requires, that's why the 15-minute rule, it requires a certain amount of virus. So it's not just that you're close to someone who exhales virus, it requires a certain amount. And so that's that viral load that they keep talking about. And so with additional ventilation improvements indoors, you can actually create much healthier buildings that would also help us in the long run with other airborne diseases. And upgrading every HVAC system isn't really an option because that's multi-million-dollar projects. And we don't have the HVAC systems that can, for example, handle a MERV 13 or 15 rating where you start filtering out these airborne particles. But we implemented what Joseph Allen suggested, and those are portable HEPA air purifiers. And so early on, we were able to increase our air exchanges to about 3 or 4 an hour. That was an initial goal. Can we get the air exchange in every room 3 or 4 times an hour to make it safer? And so just a few weeks ago, October 15th, I believe, he posted a piece in the Washington Post. And he said, it is time now with the vaccine for the 5 to 11-year-olds coming. So at the time, it wasn't approved yet. But with that coming, now we can start having conversations about what would it take to make masks optional, to take the masks down. And as we said, again, from the beginning, it's all layered strategies. So if we want to take one strategy away, which would be masking, others have to replace it. And so the ones that have to replace it is one, giving every family the chance, if they want to have their child vaccinated. For adults, that's been the case. But then also, again, improvements in ventilation and the availability of rapid tests. So there's a concern sometimes with rapid tests giving you a negative result, even though you are COVID positive, so these false negatives. But the research has really shown that when people are the most contagious, even the rapid tests are actually quite accurate, and you don't always have to have a PCR test. And so when we look at the vaccine availability, rapid tests, and ventilation, he said, this is where we have to look at masks then. Now, masks work, and we've shown the models from the Biocomplexity Institute at UVA, but he makes a good point. With all control measures, you have to decide when is it time to relax that. It doesn't mean that we can't, if we have a tough flu season and we know the next few weeks are going to be tough, that's a strategy we can consider. It's done, in many countries. We always see, travelers from Asia in the airport with masks. We've seen that for years. And it is to keep others safe, not necessarily for that person. And it's the same idea, right? And so it may be for future consideration, but there is a time, because if we just keep sticking to it, right, then either we have to say we're going to wear these forever, and you also then get to the point where you say, well, what is the additional benefit? We've done the vaccine now. We have ventilation improvements. We have rapid tests available to quickly diagnose. And what will it take then to ever take these masks off? So that's an important conversation. So when we talk about community spread, what I said earlier, this is basically from the beginning of the pandemic. And you can see that now we're on a significant downward trend again. Pretty much the models, again, from UVA, they played out. It didn't go quite as high as they said it could go, because potential was there to go as high as the holiday spike from last December, January. But it did go, that was definitely the second highest spike in the pandemic. And so now, for the first time since August, we're back in orange. So we've been in orange now for 4 days in a row. Again, on that downward trend, you can see it where the blue line basically crosses that last horizontal line at 100 new cases per 100,000 population. So the blue line has gone below that, so we're below 100. That means in orange, right? Would have to be below 50 to be back down in yellow. But it's looking like a downward trend. And when it comes to vaccines, VDH contacted us early on, again, with the help of Fire and Rescue. We have made the vaccine available to families that want it. So this is, again, completely optional. Families can take advantage of it if they like. We have EMTs there to observe, the kids in case, again, someone has a reaction to it. But the vaccine is available. And if you look at the timing, if you look at the very bottom, Mountain View Elementary School, second dose of the Pfizer vaccine December 10th. And so that means before the holiday break, those students who take advantage of it here, and there are many other places where you can take advantage of it. VaccinateVirginia.org, I believe, is the website. You can find a location if you want to get your child vaccinated, but they will be fully vaccinated before the winter break. And so when we come back in January, that's going to be an interesting conversation, right? Because disease trends are down, the vaccine is available, and when it comes to ventilation, we just a week ago completed a study of every single classroom in Rockingham County to look at what will it take to get every classroom to at least the excellent level. So 5 air exchanges an hour. That means some classrooms are above that, but none of them will be below that. And so we're ordering additional air purifiers. We have the big blue boxes. They're a little bit loud when you turn them all the way up. So our criterion was, how do we get to 5 at least, running them at about 60% speed when, again, that's where you start, then I'm hearing it. It's just all white noise at the lower levels. And we have trailers full of filters that will last us for the next few years. And they do filter out these particles. And it literally means 5 times an hour, the air is completely refreshed in a classroom. And so that's, again, another additional layer of protection. And that allows us then to, again, in January, where we expect the public health order to likely expire anyway, it gives us a chance then to have this conversation. Have we now added enough layers of protection to now feel comfortable making masks optional, right? And so this research, again, came out of Harvard Public Health from Joseph Allen. And we have rapid tests available. I've got 1,300 sitting in my office, and we can get more if we need them. So we sent those to schools, families that need them to just check. They can have them from us for free. Again, mask compliance, I showed this before. This is going to be one of the main messages. In the models, 50% mask compliance, not as good as 90% mask compliance. The cases drop further. But the more important one is the other three lines. That means stay home when you're sick, right? That's going to be the main message. That'll keep us healthier than masks will. If families would keep the kids home and staff members would stay home when they have symptoms. Again, we can provide a rapid COVID test to see if someone has symptoms, whether they're likely contagious or not. So all these in combination hopefully get us there. The second part, we had just presented to the Capital Improvement Plan Committee earlier today. And we had a conversation a few months ago about how to solve our long-term space issues, whether we should consider building a new high school, for example, converting Spotswood to a middle school, Montevideo to an elementary school. We looked at those numbers. That's not the recommendation that would add $50, $60 million really to the price tag of that, even if you include building a new elementary school if you needed to. So working with the existing buildings and potentially building one elementary school would be the long-term goal here. But I just wanted to quickly review what we talked about. I presented, and you've seen this, you saw this in the retreat this summer. I just updated the numbers today. So when we look at capacity, we want to make sure that what elementary capacity we have per grade level, that's similar to the capacity at the middle school and at the high school. And so at the very top, you can see in Broadway, in the Broadway attendance area, the high school is simply too small. And again, the high school was built when I was a teacher there, and there was no spare classroom even when it opened in 1998. And I was a social studies teacher, so I finally got rid of the cart that I had pushed around at the old high school and had a classroom, and they said, don't get used to your window because that's the direction we may likely expand. And so even then there was conversation around the expansion of Broadway High School. And what's important is, again, we have elementary capacity that lines up well with the middle school capacity per grade level, but an expansion of Broadway High School would make that a well-aligned attendance area. And it also gives us a safety valve if we had these conversations, if the urban development area grows quickly, where can we send students, right? Where do we have the capacity? We have some in the TA area, but there are lots of developments that are slated there. And then Broadway, if we expand the high school, then we actually have quite a bit of room there. Again, if we get that to, so right now we have pretty much, full capacity at Broadway High School. So an expansion of Broadway could add as many as 20-some classrooms to that school. In the East Rock attendance area, the high school is well aligned with the elementary school capacity. The middle school is a little bit small, but the high school is so big that just like in many other school districts, again, there can be a conversation of how we actually have that high school configured. So many high schools are 8 to 12. With this much space, there's certainly 8th grade could have a separate wing. We have a really big elementary school, so you could go the other direction too with 6th grade, but 8 to 12 would be an option. So there's nothing really on the eastern side that we need to do immediately. At the bottom TA, that's probably our best alignment when it comes to spare capacity and actually the capacity being aligned between elementary, middle, and high school. And at the top, Spotswood is fairly well aligned, but again, filling up. So if Broadway gets expanded, again, you have relief there. We already obviously provided some relief towards the east side, when we redistricted South River. So the requests that we made to the Capital Improvement Plan Committee was a Broadway High School expansion. Again, we have some ideas in what order they need to happen. Broadway High School would be the first one. Broadway High School expansion to start maybe a year from now. And then Spotswood High School and Montevideo High School expansion just depends on the timing. The reason Spotswood is listed as an expansion is because the school's old enough for a renovation. So the schools, we have an HVAC system that's 40 years old. There needs to be some asbestos abatement. And so as you renovate the school, just the renovation would be about $40-some million. It makes sense to also think to the future and expand. Montevideo can probably wait a little bit there, especially if you provide some relief, by, for example, Route 11 North. We've had a lot of families that said, why do we travel to the Spotswood attendance area when Broadway's there? Broadway's not big enough in terms of the high school, but once that increases in size, that's certainly an option. And then Elkton Elementary and McAckiesville Elementary, they were already on the capital improvement plan. There's simply parts of those buildings that are more than 50 years old with old HVAC systems that need to be renovated. And again, asbestos abatement and so on. And then MTC, that's a more recent one. We've notified Harrisonburg City as well. A facility study showed a need for renovation there and potentially adding to classrooms and for new programs. And again, the timing of that depends because that's, there's an 80-20 capital outlay split between the county and the city. So you'll get more information and more detail at the MTC Executive Board meeting when Kevin Hutton is going to present, that facility studies to the boards of both school districts, Harrisonburg and Rockingham. So that was the presentation I gave to the CIP committee, and I wanted to make sure that you had that same information immediately. And if you have any questions, I will gladly answer those.
Board members, do you have any questions for Dr. Scheichel? Okay. Thank you, Dr. Scheichel. Board members, you have the financial review for October in your packets. You also have information from Ms. Bocock regarding the VSBA Capital Conference and the orientation for board members and chairs. It's kind of a multiple time, and that's January 24th and 25th. So if you would reach out to her and let her know if you will attend that. You may also want to have conversation with Dr. Scheichel regarding setting up legislative meetings if you want to meet with any of the legislators while you're there. We'll move into other business, and so we'll start again with Dr. McQuilkin.
Thank you, Ms. Reed, but I pass.
Thank you, Dr. McQuilkin. Ms. Lohr?
I don't think I have any questions at this time. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Falk? Thank you. Mr. Breeden?
During the meeting, I got a text from my wife saying congratulations to East Rockingham High School cheer. They're second in the state. So congratulations to them. And I just have to say that as you sit here and deal with these weighty issues and whatnot, I found myself distracted. There's nothing more heartwarming than seeing a child sleep in mom or dad's arms. What's his name? Joseph. Okay. Well, he's a cutie. And I understand his sentiment. Sometimes I want to doze off, but thank you all for coming.
Thank you, Mr. Breeden. That's because it's really 9:30, Mr. Breeden, not 8:30. Right. Dr. Scheichel?
I'll pass.
Thank you. Okay, so thank you all for being here this evening with us. We have reason to go into closed meeting. Safe travels home. It's dark out now, and it's a little bit later than we're used to, so we appreciate you being with us this evening. Board members, do we have a motion to go into closed meeting?
I move that the board enter a closed meeting to discuss and consider the following pursuant to the provisions of Virginia Code, Section 2.2-3711A1, personnel, specific public officers, appointees, or employees for the purpose of considering such individuals' assignment, appointment, promotion, performance, salary, or resignation.
Thank you, Ms. Lord. Do we have a second? Thank you, Mr. Falk. Any questions or discussion, board members? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? We're in closed session. Thank you.